Hello, my name is Tyler Rowe. I am an actor in Kansas City by night, and by day I save lives with mortgages one at a time.
So let's start with little Tyler. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in at least 7 places, but primarily there was Wichita for a couple of years, definitely around Johnson County for a second, and then I went to high school in Lee Summit, Missouri. Goddard, Kansas, is that a place? Yeah. Okay, so Goddard, Kansas was in there, and maybe a couple of other places. I genuinely don't know. There were at least 5 places. Me, my mother, at that point, my little sister had been born. And yeah, it was her, and then for a while her partner, or her boyfriend at the time, Patrick, but primarily us, the 3 of us. I was really ADD. There's really, and that's an official diagnosis as well, but I had all this energy and no impulse control whatsoever. I didn't struggle in school, but I didn't really care about more than 2 or 3 subjects at a time. I really cared about those 2 or 3 subjects at a time, but everything else was just sort of fodder. I remember we were living in Wichita at the time on farmland, and I was watching the news, and there was a funnel cloud forming in the farm background, and in the foreground was just the house that we were living in. I remember that very clearly. And I lived, which was great, and so did everybody. But it didn't end up touching down. Theatrically, the first memory that I have, well, I was tricked. I was literally tricked into auditioning for my first show. I loved the movie Hercules, which was probably the first indication that I was gonna I liked performing at any level, because I would just really jam out to that movie almost daily, and I really liked the muses. I mean, that was it for me. Yeah. In junior high, I watched a production they did Guys and Dolls, and it was terrible. Truly bad, but I was overwhelmed with how I was just going through the hallway, singing the songs to myself. But at that point I was still playing sports. I was in baseball and football, and really just trying to be athletic and just failing at every level. When I told my friend about this, he said, well, you can audition for the shows, which I had never even considered before. They were doing a 1-act festival. So he and I made the agreement, I was not gonna do it unless he was gonna do it with me. But I didn't know this at the time, he had no interest in doing this show. He just liked theater, and he thought that I might like theater. So we rehearsed together. This is a little all over the place, but we had a meeting where the director of the program, his name was Dustin Pence, he was like, all right, everybody, here's the monologue. You have 2 full weeks to memorize this. Remember, we need projection, we need volume. And that's all that I took away from that conversation. So I would go home, and I had a tiny little cell phone with a basic recorder, and I would stand downstairs in the 2-story house and just yell my monologue, just yell it as loud as I could. And then if I could hear myself on the phone, I thought, I'm golden. And that is exactly what I did in the audition. There was no acting going on at all. I was just yelling as loud as I possibly could. I got cast in the only non-speaking part of the show. The show was called Aftermath by Jonathan Rand. I was on stage for 12 seconds. I played the principal, and I immediately quit everything after that. I was I'm done with baseball, I'm done with football. I like this. I didn't know what I was gonna do with it, or how to even get involved at all, but it was the most exhilarating 12 seconds of my life. Maybe still. Maybe nothing has topped that. One of the most important piece of advice I ever got, and I haven't worked with him since, but Gary Neal Johnson and I did Tuck Everlasting together. and I was wound tight, really tight. I had no real idea what I was doing, very insecure in like my entire being, and really dead set on like, I'm gonna take all of this very seriously all the time, which is important because what you're like, there is a seriousness about what you're doing. But he said, I don't know what tirade that I went on, I don't know what 5-minute monologue I said, but he was like, call me when you realize that this is a play. And at the time I was like, what does that mean, right? I think 2 or 3 years later, I had that realization where I was wound tight once again. I felt myself, like jaw clenching and getting just very involved in my emotions about whatever was happening, which was unimportant. And his voice just entered my head, and I was like, there it is. Like, not that it's a gift, even though it's lovely to do what we do and to want to do what we do, but rather that it's important not to take anything too seriously, and that includes theater. You're conjuring these things. There is a fundamental difference between the two. There is being, and then there is being while playing. And that exploration has always felt wonderful and fascinating to me. Like, being able to buy into the exact circumstances of what's happening, really tuning into your partner, very much listening. The lens of the character is applied, and you're feeling these things deeply, but at no point is your body ever going to be unaware that there are people there watching it. So it changes things. It makes it exciting, I think.
What play are you working on right now?
We're doing the last 5 years. This is the set for the last 5 years. That's the show that I'm doing. I've been wading through Erica Schwartz and Danica Weiss and the Handelman twins. I've been wading through Heather Greenbeck. I have gotten into my own head at times in this process because it's a 2-person show. Very vulnerable, being on stage by yourself, trying to live within, like, the people are there, oftentimes as participants in the scene, but they're not. That in and of itself is so frightening when you're on stage, and eye contact can really help. Checking in with somebody, just sort of those natural things that happen when you're paying attention to their physiology, to how they're listening. But the only one you're listening to in this capacity is really your inner life and the inner life of the character. A couple of days ago was the first time I feel like I really started to hit my stride in terms of discovery. So now I'm really excited to move forward, but candidly there was fear because I was going home and thinking I don't want to surface level do this. I don't want to just be singing the songs that people like. I want to be telling a story. I would like to have an interpretation of Jamie and who I think this is, and I was worried that I wasn't going to get there. I am feeling better now. That is the most honest answer that I can give. I think that we'll get there, and then these guys have been nothing but patient with me as I try to suss and feel that out. But earnestly, there was just a moment or two where I was like, what am I doing? And have I ever been paid to do this before? And have I ever even been in theater before? It was truly daunting. And then the creative juices started flowing right around the time that the blocking started to set in and the memorization started to catch up. Those things that you need to feel comfortable in a show, like things actually clicking into place, the body getting used to the movement, the mind knowing what it's going to say before the lines actually come out. And so now I'm really excited to explore. Education, like the actual pursuit of knowledge, is, I feel like, the actor's most prescient tool. It's information, which breeds wisdom, which breeds perspective. I spend as much time as I can when I have the time and energy reading, connecting with all different kinds of media and mediums, and I think that is so wildly important. And then the second thing is that if you're a young person, the quicker that you begin to kind of shed the identity or the importance that you place upon yourself. It doesn't mean that you're inconsequential or that your feelings aren't important, but it just means it is so much easier to do anything when you are not attaching it to your ego. Like, the quicker that you can shed that and just be and make attempts to be and be kind, because that's what that breeds, the better off you'll be. I've said this before. There's a reason that there are a lot of rampant narcissists in the performance industry, and that's because empathy really only has to run skin deep when you're acting. So a narcissist has no problem at all relating everything back to themselves. But it is far better for you at a personal level, for all of us, to be no one and just take it as it comes and just breathe. That's what I'm learning, at least last couple of years, is just breathing and putting no weight on the seriousness of this. It's fun, it's play. The best way of moving forward is to take it as it comes, for me.
It's kind of like what Gary told you.
Yeah, in one sentence. And I did it in 3 full paragraphs, so